foster care break, when and why we may need it. If you're watching this video, my guess is you are probably pretty close to burnout, or maybe you're a new foster parent and you're wondering, am I gonna need a break along the way? Well, my name is Jen Vianetta. We've been foster parents for 15 years, and today I'm gonna talk about foster care breaks, when and why you may need it. Foster parent for over a dozen years, there have been so many times when we have taken a foster care break. Sometimes it's out of necessity. In fact, most of the time it really was. It was because we thought maybe we're done with fostering, or maybe we had just got done with a really long or a really hard case. During those times, it's so important to listen to your family, listen to yourself, and realize there may be times when you will need a foster parent break. First, up front, I want you to know that I am so pro foster parents, so pro foster kids. I'm all about toughing it out, doing the hard thing. However, sometimes what is in the best interest of other people, and maybe for ourselves also, it is to take a foster care break. So first, let's talk about the whys. Why do we need a foster care break? I'm not super big into philosophy or psychology, especially letting that trump our instincts or our spirit or what we know God has called us to do. At the same time, I do believe there's consistent beliefs and understandings about us and our human nature that are important to look at. One of those is Klaus Grawe, who defines the core basic needs in his consistency theory. In his theory, all behavior is either approach-driven or avoidant-driven. The four needs, according to his consistency theory, are: number one, attachment. We as human beings all need some form of attachment with other human beings. Number two is control. He believes that all human beings have to have a certain measure of control, or at least a certain felt measure of control over our own individual lives. The third need is pleasure and or the avoidance of pain. And so what that means is that we seek out and desire happiness and joy and pleasure for ourselves and other people, and we avoid things that are hard or difficult or bad according to his theory. The fourth need is self-esteem, the desire and the need to control or have some level of self-esteem and to avoid those things that harm or maybe damage our self-esteem. So now, in relation to foster care, my guess is you might felt like we have in the past, like you have been strapped into a roller coaster ride, and that ride is going perhaps 100 miles an hour. It's twisting and turning, maybe involuntarily without your control, and maybe you're even in the dark, so you can't even prepare or plan what is around the next bend. We can be doing everything right as foster parents. At the same time, foster care innately and at the core of its being really does hinder or go against those four needs for human beings, which is to be in control, to have attachment. Sometimes in care, we have kids that refuse to attach with us, and that might be a reason to be able to take a foster care break. We may not be able to seek pleasure or find good in it, regardless of what, if there is good in it, and we may not be able to avoid the pain and the suffering of these kids or the situation or the condition of our home that we are in. And lastly, maybe foster care is at the point where it feels like it's coming into straight contact with your self-esteem. Instead of being something that lifts you up and encourages you and fills you up to where you feel competent and strong and capable, like you can pour into these children, your self-esteem has felt smashed and bashed, and you feel like you just need a respite or a break. And that might be a great opportunity to take some space and take some time to take a foster care break. Again, foster care in and of itself, it is not a bad thing. It is a beautiful and wonderful thing. It heals us, it exposes us so that we can address the core of who we are and grow in character and integrity and in strength. It builds bonds with these kids and it brings healing. Family just has a miraculous way of bringing healing to the children that are in our homes. at the same time. And here's an example that hopefully it will help you. So when I was little, a preteen in elementary school, I used to love roller skating. And I know that kind of dates me because there's inline skating and ice skating and all these other options. But my dad, as a second job, he worked actually at a skating rink. And so we would go sometimes on Wednesdays, sometimes a lot of times on Friday nights, just to be able to see our dad. I had roller skates and I loved them. I loved having them on and feeling like I was flying across the cement. In our basement, there was a whole roller skating rink, an area where we could skate and play music. And we had a sidewalk out front of our house, and every single chance that I could get, I was roller skating. I absolutely loved it. But a funny thing happened. The moment that I took off those roller skates, after I had been skating for hours, I felt funny. I felt like I didn't even realize that there had been weights around my ankles. There were these heavy roller skates, and when I walked, my feet just felt strange, and I even probably looked funny to other people because I had forgotten what it was like to walk without those roller skates on my feet. But once I got those skates off and once I adapted again to be able to walk and have some space from roller skating, guess what? The first thing I wanted to do was to put back on those skates and go rolling around that skating rink again. So foster care, I think, is a lot like that. It's not that foster parenting is bad, but it can be hard. It can feel weighty. It can feel heavy. And there may be times where you just need to take off the skates, set them next to you, and maybe to watch what other people are doing or to take a break, even for an hour or two. Take some space, take some time to be able to remember what it was like when you didn't have kids in your home and you weren't fostering 24/7. And my guess is the moment that you do that, you will want to put those skates back on and you will want to jump out into the arena again. So what are some of the reasons why you might want to take a foster parent break to get out of the forest and just have a little bit of a reprieve? And some of those reasons might be that you are utterly exhausted. You have been skating around over and over for hours, so many times that you cannot count. And it may feel like you're going in circles and you're not going anywhere, and your self-esteem has been damaged, or your identity or who you are feels so diminished that you need a break to step back and to remind yourself of why you did fostering in the first place. You also might find yourself being cynical or negative, or maybe picking on a foster child, or stonewalling and separating yourself from the foster children that are in your care. You may become sad, or you may be crying a lot, or you may just find yourself lashing out or feeling really angry and bitter at what you're doing. And that's a great time to really take a break, to step back and remember again why you decided to foster. Sure, when you're tired or you're weary, you can keep on fostering. You can keep taking placements and keep adding burden after burden and have no strength and go around the circle over and over again. You can do that, but the quality of foster care is vital to these children, to these cases, to ourselves. We don't want to get to a point where our physical health is compromised, our personal relationships are compromised, these kids' cases are compromised because we're tired and we're not setting boundaries and we don't take a foster care break. So when is a good time to take a foster care break? We're going to go back to Grawe's consistency theory on the basic needs of all humans. The first thing, again, is attachment. If we're not attaching to a foster child, if a foster child, we've worked with it, we've maybe done therapy, we've read all the books, and for whatever reason, a foster child is not attaching to us. That wouldn't be in the first day or the first week or maybe even the first 6 months. But after 6 months to a year, if we're noticing that foster kids are not attaching or bonding or connecting in our home, if they feel volatile or angry, or there's just not an emotional connection, that might be a great time to take a foster care break. The second thing is when we feel out of control. If we have felt consistently and over a long period of time completely out of control. Again, there's times like a roller coaster where we're going to be flying down the hill or making a sharp turn and we can feel completely out of control. We can feel lost, like in the dark, like we don't know where we're going. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about prolonged periods of time where no matter what we do or how we respond, we feel like we have no control whatsoever. We feel weak, we feel unempowered, we feel depleted on every sense of who we are, and especially if our relationships around us are being strained in an unnecessary way. We have to do something that will get us back in control and feeling strong and empowered so that we can do the best that we can to take care of our foster kids. So number 3 is when we stop feeling joy about being a foster parent. Again, there may be times or days where we are not sad, not happy, or maybe even weeks or long periods of time that are extremely difficult and hard. And I want to encourage you through those times, push through. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't throw away your license and all that you've worked for. Don't just dump a kid off at the department simply because it has been hard for a week or you had a bad day. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you feel like you have zero joy. It's been a prolonged period. You can't seem to find it. You take breaks. You maybe go out for a couple of hours or even take a weekend or a respite, and you still cannot find joy in what you're doing and caring for these kids. Maybe that's a good time to take a little longer break and to really think about stepping back for maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months until you can find the joy again in being a foster parent. Number 4 is loss. If you have experienced a significant loss, it is a great and excellent time to take a foster care break. Honestly, this is when our family most has taken a break from foster care, when we've had a child that we've loved and bonded with and really think and treat just like they're part of our family, and they've had a transition plan away from our home. It has been a time that we've needed to regroup and reconnect. We've needed to really reflect on that situation. We have in the past just taken kids right away, and we found for our family that just doesn't work. Ignoring our loss or our sorrow or maybe even our bitterness over a case is not a great way to resolve that, and it will just build up and add up, and then later we're going to have negative emotions, maybe against that foster child or against being foster parents in general, and then we'll close our license and we won't benefit anyone. So I encourage you, if you've had a significant loss in your life, maybe not even just with a foster child leaving, maybe there's been a death of someone close to you in your family, or maybe a diagnosis, that might be a great time to take a foster care break. Number 5 is when we feel like we have no self-esteem. We feel like we don't remember who we are. We don't remember what we're doing or why we're doing it. We shut out the kids emotionally. Yes, we may be able to meet their needs. We may be able to take them where they need to go, but we are not in a position where we can emotionally give to another human being, let alone our foster children. Foster kids are some of the most intelligent and intuitive people that I have ever met. They've learned to really gauge their environment, the emotions, and the feelings of those who are around them. And they can sense when you're not invested in them, when you are not connected with them, when you are maybe resentful for what you're doing. And so if that's the case, that might be a great opportunity to maybe not discard that placement, but to take a little bit of a break, take a weekend for yourself and really regroup, really remind yourself who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. Number 6 is just kind of an add-on. I wasn't going to share this, but it really came to mind, and I think it's really, really important. What that is if you are getting feedback from your community, people who are around you that are saying you're kind of stressed, or you seem really angry lately, or I've noticed that you've been crying a lot, or you're not returning my phone calls or engaging with me, or you seem really angry at that child or over the situation. Again, we all have bad days. We all have a couple bad days or even bad weeks. But if you have the people in your community that are closest to you telling you that maybe you should take a foster care break, it might be a great idea to listen to them. As foster parents, our hearts can be bigger, maybe even than our minds or our ability to understand or, gauge our own personal needs or desires. Oftentimes, we will put our foster kids first. We will sacrifice blood and sweat and anything we can to help our foster kids. However, if we are depleted and there is nothing left and other people are seeing it, that might be a great time to take a foster care break. These are my final thoughts. As a foster parent, and I think that many foster parents can agree with this, that foster parenting is the hardest, but also the most rewarding thing that they have ever done. Foster parents are special people. They are people who are willing to put on their skates, strap up their shoes, and to go on a slippery ride over and over again. Sometimes it feels like around and around in circles for the sake of another human being. We can feel like we are in Space Mountain, a dark roller coaster ride, and we can spend lots of period of time feeling completely out of control. So how do we handle that? Do we take a foster care break? Do we not take a break? And do we just press in? How do you know? For me, the only way that I've known and been able to discern whether it's time to take a foster care break is really honestly just to pray, to ask God His will for a case, for a child. Sometimes I really don't want to hear the answer. Sometimes He will tell me to let a foster child go that I didn't want to, that there was not even a fiber in my being that wanted that child to leave my home. Other times it was to have a foster child stay. And again, it was extremely hard. And I didn't think that I had any strength or anything in me to be able to continue to care for that particular child. However, God has given me strength and empowered me. And at the end of the day, we can talk about psychology and theories and studies, but at the end of the day, our attachment more than anything is to Him. He's the one that is in control when we're not in control. He is the one that is our pleasure, and it helps us endure when we go through hard things or are suffering or having a hard time. And at the end of the day, our self-esteem does not depend on whether we have a case that goes our way or a child that behaves, or whether we think we have the life that we thought we wanted or maybe even deserved. Our self-esteem, it comes from Him. All of our strength and all of our power and all of our ability to be foster parents, it comes from God. And so tap into Him. Seek Him. He will guide and He will direct you. And at the end of the day, I'm just a foster parent. Who am I to tell you whether you need a foster care break? I think you know. I think you can listen to your heart and you can make that decision for yourself, because at the end of the day, these kids need placements. They need people who will stick with them and will not just quit and throw in the towel when things get hard. But at the same time, I understand there are times when all of us need a foster care break. Thank you so much for watching. There are so many videos about foster care below. Check them out. Please like this video. Send a comment, especially if it's a positive, encouraging comment, and make sure to subscribe. We will see you next time. And remember, go out, live bold, and be brave.